Welcome, everybody, to the Three Doves podcast. I'm your host, Jason Pulowski. And on today's podcast, Erin Morrison shares how God used curiosity, discomfort, and radical trust to lead her from questions about faith into a life of surrender, mission, and purpose. Well, I'm sitting here with Erin Morrison. And Erin, welcome to the Three Doves podcast.
Thanks. It's awesome to be here.
Oh, great to have you. Tell us a little bit from the beginning, your background. Where were you born? Where did you grow up?
Yeah, I was born and raised my whole life in Oak Park, Illinois. So it's the first suburb right outside of Chicago. And I was so grateful to grow up there.
How old were you when you were born? Okay, listen there. I thought this would be good just to kind of have a little fun there. Okay, yeah. I've been waiting to say something like that on one of these podcasts because I've been kind of real reserved. But today, I just felt a little bit. Let's have some fun.
You gotta.
Hey, so anyways, you were 0, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you grew up in, you said Oak
Park.
Oak Park. Yeah. I believe I visited there one time.
Oh, cool.
Yep. I have was working with a ministry called Transformation Prayer. Okay. And he had a church there that we stopped at. And I believe that's where it was located. It's a nice area. So, yeah.
Yeah. I tell my parents all the time, they're still there. And I'm like, you can't leave there because I don't want to move back, but I love going back. And I'm just so grateful for all the opportunities living in Oak Park provided me. So
a little bit about your background so that people understand who you are and where you came from. Tell us a little bit about when you grew up there. Tell me, did you go to church? What did that look like?
Yep. I was born and raised going to church, going to Awana on Wednesday nights. During Advent season, my parents had us memorize Luke 2, 1 through 20 and Matthew 2, 1 through 12. We'd recite it every day leading up to Christmas. So I would say faith was very much in my life. And I think that Sunday school actually does a lot of things okay and a lot of things that they could improve on. And I think one of the biggest things was they never prepped me knowing that at some point I was under my parents' faith and I was going to have to decide what I believed and kind of separate from my parents' faith to take it on as my own. And that actually happened at a young age for me. When I started in like 4th grade, I started questioning everything that I brought up doing. I'm just a questioner and a prober and a investigator, maybe. Like I have that kind of science-y love. And so I would just ask these questions, but I didn't feel like I had my own space to do it. Until my parents sent me to summer camp, I started asking all these questions. How do I know the Bible's true? Why don't we see miracles today? Because I hadn't been exposed to that in my upbringing. I'd been told all of these things in the Bible, but I'm like, why isn't water being turned to wine today? Yeah. And so that was really the safe space. So from like 4th grade to 6th grade, I just like questioned and like got to a space where I'm like, I don't know if I want this. And middle school just left in this rocky place. Like, I don't know if I want this. And I just didn't have the questions answered well. The answers I was given was like, well, because that's what the Bible says. And I'm like, well, how do we know the Bible's true? A lot of questions are really healthy to ask. I just didn't know it was healthy. So then high school, I get involved in a youth group separate from my parents' church. And that gave me my own space. And we went to this youth camp in Jekyll Island, Georgia, 20-hour bus ride from Chicago. All of these high schoolers all meet in this one place for a week. And we just play games on the beach, sermon, breakfast, and dinner. And I had this amazing youth leader, and I sat with her for 5 hours and asked her every question. And she gave me this beautiful place of faith and concrete answers. And she showed that there is proof that miracles are still happening today. There is proof that Jesus actually walked around and there was archaeological evidence and everything. But she also said this really magical thing to me. She said, but I'm okay not knowing absolutely everything because that's where faith comes in. And it gave me this place of like, okay. And that was the night going into my junior year of high school, I said I took my faith on as my own. So that journey started in 4th grade. Yeah. The questioning all the way into your junior year after even getting those answers, you then said, I'm in. Yeah.
I'm all in.
So when I was 6, I gave my life to Christ, but I don't know what that really meant. I was all in with my life in Christ in junior year. And I look back and kind of my starting point was at junior year of high school.
Yeah.
And then it was all in from there.
Yeah. If you were like talking to someone, if you were looking back, talking to a junior or something, what kind of advice would you give them in that, growing up in a family of faith, trying to figure out the Bible, everything around that, the questions, what kind of advice would you give them on that?
That's a good question. I think to choose curiosity rather than rebellion. I think I just wanted to push away from my parents to have my own space. And my parents wanted to equip me with resources. They wanted to say, do you want to talk to so-and-so? Like they were trying to equip me and I wasn't open to that. I didn't choose curiosity in those moments. I wanted to push them completely away and figure it out on my own. And fortunately, the Lord provided with me opportunities to still search that. But I think...
But we're talking 4th grade here. You started to do this.
Yeah.
5th grade, 6th grade. I get when they're in the 6th grade, but you started younger. Mm-hmm. And so, you're telling me God was stirring in you at a young age to question a lot about what you were being told.
And I tell new believers that all the time. We're like, I'm discipling a couple friends right now who are super new. And when we walk through scripture together, I'm like, hey, outside of the core foundation of the gospel, there's a lot of space here to talk and question and debate. And I think I grew up in Sunday school where it was black and white and there was no space to question. And also, we never talked about two sides to the picture. We only talked about the good and the God. We never talked about that there's all of these powers of evil going against. And so many of my questions came from well, how is God all good and all these things? Because I never heard of this power dynamic that's going on between the enemy and Christ. And I think just giving space now, that's always my encouragement of don't take a sermon that you hear point blank. It's okay. Those questions are okay to have, and it's okay to sit in that discomfort. Cause I think that's where Christ really meets you to reveal more about his nature to you and to draw on that relationship with him.
Talk to me about that discomfort. What's that like, the sit in discomfort?
Yeah, I think Christ says a lot of challenging things in scripture. And so I think if we don't read our Bibles in this place of that was really hard to read, I'm not sure we're reading our Bibles correctly. I remember the first time I read in Matthew where Jesus is it's easy to love easy people. Even pagans do that, but you're going to stand out for loving your enemies. And I was like, oof. I know I sat in a lot of discomfort there because I was like, I'm not sure I can look back at one difficult person and having treated them with love. I'm
going to venture to say that even our listeners would say, we have some very difficult people around us. And my natural tendency to be I just don't want to be hanging with them. You know what I mean? Because they're just difficult.
Which is our flesh.
Right. But God is saying, no, I put you there so that you can be love and the light of what God's called you, called us to be.
Totally.
That's a very, very insightful, Erin, observation of that, of what Jesus said, because that's what I forget that sometimes. And I'm sure.
I think we all do.
100%.
We're forgetful, and God's the faithful one.
He is.
Just to remind us.
He is faithful. Absolute faithful. So tell me more about that. So we're talking about this place of discomfort.
Yes and no. So here was I really faced discomfort. So when I was 6 years old, I decided I was going to be a dolphin trainer.
Okay. So
my whole life, I focused every decision around what was going to make me become a dolphin trainer.
Let me just say something. I'm going to interrupt you here because this is a great moment.
Yeah.
I can see you doing this, by the way. You have such energy, and I know folks can't see this. They can hear it.
Yeah.
But you have such energy when you're speaking that I can see you up there going, now look at this trick, everybody. And, I can see that.
Yeah.
And I think this is how God wired you.
Totally.
Right. But we're still there. But I want to point that out, that you'll hear it in her voice.
Hey, Three Doves podcast listeners. My name is Justin Hannikin, and I've been a guest on episodes 3 and 4 of this podcast. I'm here to share with you today about a tangible way that we can live out our honest faith through real stories to see lives transformed. I'm part of a group called the Million Movement, and we have a goal to see 1 million children sponsored by the year 2050. I had the opportunity to travel to Ethiopia in 2009 to meet my sponsored child with Food for the Hungry, and my life has never been the same since. Could you take a minute and visit www.themillionmovement.com to read more about our vision? And then, if you're able to sponsor a child, you'll find a way to do so right at that link. Shoot me a DM on Instagram at the.million.movement because I want to send you a free gift to help you on your sponsorship journey. Again, that's www.themillionmovement.com. And now back to this week's episode.
It got to a point where dolphins were number one, and I was okay with that before I had that time encounter with the Lord in my junior year. And so I would eat, breathe, sleep dolphins. I had every Brewster's book on dolphins, walls covered in my room dolphins, every dolphin stuffed animal from the zoo. I mean,
Did you have the Miami Dolphins? That's important for some.
Well, I grew up in Chicago.
Okay, so you didn't have Miami Dolphins?
If I had to pick a football team when I was in Chicago, I would have picked the Dolphins. But,
the Bears.
No, there was a local zoo 15 minutes from where I lived, and I was there all the time.
That's
Didn't
excellent.
even need the Miami Dolphins because I had the real ones in front of me. So then my real first discomfort, I would say even before, because once junior year hit, I was like, Lord, I'm all in. I wasn't instantly opening my Bible and being discomforted, I guess is the word, discomforted with what Jesus was saying. But the first time I really was feeling this discomfort was figuring out that now dolphins probably couldn't have been number one because there was really Christ is supposed to be number one. And I vividly remember maybe now my senior year of like, okay, God, I'm all in with you, but I still think dolphins are number one. And he's so gracious. I have friends that have told me similar stories in their life of like, they were on their way to be a professional athlete and then they tear their ACL and then that's how they find the Lord. Like just things like that where like the Lord's doing something to get their attention. And I was just so grateful that the Lord's way of dealing with my discomfort and the Lord's way of getting my attention was he sent me to Africa for 6 weeks. So I go in between high school and college, I go to Rwanda and Zimbabwe. And it was the first time I traveled outside the country and I traveled by myself. And I remember getting to the airport in Rwanda and someone was supposed to pick me up as a friend of a friend, a long story, super cool. And I, in my very rookie first time, just sent in my time of arrival, didn't send in flight info or whatever. Well, flight was 3 hours delayed. I get my bags, walk outside to the airport expecting to see my name on some sheet or whatever. No one's there. Wi-Fi is not working. It's before the time where I can just push off airplane mode and be able to contact someone for less than $100 or whatever. So I remember calling out to God right there, quickly panicking, being like, God, I'm out of ideas right now and I need you to do something right now. It's probably the first time I really prayed to God, I don't know, at least with fervency. 30 seconds later, this lady walks up to me. Are you Erin? I was like, yes. And she goes, I've been looking all over for you. Ben sent me. I'm his secretary. Like, I've been here for an hour and a half or 2 hours waiting for you. Like, come with me. And I just remember being like, this is really cool.
Yeah.
I call out to God and he just shows up.
Yeah.
And that's what the entire trip was for me. And I remember being so convicted in that time on that trip where I was like, God, I never need to touch a dolphin in my life. I'm like, whatever you want me to do, I'm all yours. If this is how you're showing up for me, how dare I not make you number one?
Wow.
And I just didn't realize it then, but have looked back over and over and over again on that trip and how gracious he was to that drop kick me there and let that be what transformed my heart. And it's funny that you ask about discomfort because then I started chasing after discomfort.
Tell me about that. Yeah. What does that look like? Yeah.
I started realizing that unless I put myself in a situation where I'm in Rwanda by myself at 18 years old without a way to communicate, I'm not fervently dependent on God the way I am when I'm sitting in my comfortable house in America with a fridge full of food. Like there's not that discomfort. And so it takes away that dependency on the Lord. And so what's really interesting is I took that energy of being obsessed with dolphins and it became being obsessed with God. And I became obsessed with knowing him and knowing his voice. And ultimately what I realized is that I needed to find ways to put myself in uncomfortable situations and live in that discomfort and enjoy that discomfort, because that's how I would watch God show up the most.
But Erin, wait a minute now. Okay, just wait a second. I'm going to play advocate with you, okay?
Okay.
So you're going to put yourself in uncomfortable situations. Make sure we define that clearly to our listeners, because that doesn't mean you're putting yourself in an unsafe place, is it?
Okay, so that's a great question. And I have a perfect analogy for you on this. Okay, so I'll give an example, and the analogy comes from that example.
Okay.
So one example I have is every year I go on a Jesus adventure. And so that's where it started with where I would just check out from the world, and I would go and I'd be completely dependent on God for whatever he wanted to do. So my second Jesus adventure, I found cheap flights to Belize, and I felt like the Lord was inviting me to get these flights and just show up with a backpack and a hammock in Belize. So I'm in Belize. I end up backpacking around like a whole week with an off-grid map, just being dependent on the Lord.
That's awesome.
And while I was on this trip in Belize and watching the Lord show up, just like he did when I was in Rwanda and Zimbabwe, he gave me this analogy, and it was these 3 rings: this green ring, this yellow ring, and this red ring. This green ring is this inner circle, and I believe it's where a lot of American Christians live. And it's a place where they know the Lord, they love the Lord, but they love him from their comfort, from their safety.
Wow.
And so it's where they'll go to church, they'll do all the spiritual disciplines, but they have this like very clear line, or if we're in circle, kind of a boundary where it feels too discomforting to be like, oh God, I can't ever do that. I can't do what you're asking me to do. But God's asking them to do it. So it's not outside of his will, but it's just too uncomfortable for them. I could never change my career. I could never sell this item that I love more than anything. I could never, whatever that thing is that God's working on in their heart.
Wow.
Okay, then we have this yellow ring I'm going to come back to.
Okay.
But then we have this red ring. And this is where I believe is your unsafe that you just asked. Okay. Where it's outside of God's will. It's saying, I'm going to jump off a cliff because I know God's going to save me. Well, no, God gave us free will. He's not asking us to test him in that. And so anything that's just outside of God's will that you're just going to do to test God or something, I believe is in this red zone. However, I think a lot of American Christians only see the green or the red, and they don't see that there's this yellow circle. And this yellow circle is what I call the Goldilocks zone. Okay. And it's a place where you're in complete dependability on the Lord, and you're completely out of your comfort zone.
I like that, because the earth is in what they call a Goldilocks zone with light. Have you ever seen that in science? They have the sun and the light, the visible light. Yeah. Well, we're right in the perfect position around the sun for that natural UV and all the spectrum to hit the earth.
I've never put that together before.
Well, I didn't until you said that, and it hit me, and it's a beautiful thing. We're right in the middle of life in the Goldilocks zone that you just said.
Yeah, you're spot on.
No, he's spot on. We're just doing a podcast, and he's just here. Yeah. Leading us.
But I think that was a great connection.
It is, isn't it? He's good.
To me, that's the biggest clarity between discomfort and safety or unsafety. Is that, are you in the Goldilocks zone, or are you in that red zone where God hasn't asked you to do something?
Well, people aren't seeing also is you're a single lady, a single woman out there at 19, 20, whatever it was, the age, running around the world in unsafe zones we would consider, but yet abiding in the yellow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you were in the green, you're in the yellow.
Verses in Matthew, it says, don't fear man who can only take body, but fear God who can take both body and soul. And I'm like, take that, stranger danger.
Put that on a billboard, right? Yeah. On the back of a bumper sticker, right? Yeah. Put that verse. Wow, that's incredible. Tell me about some of the places that you visited there. What did God do in this comfort zone, or the Goldilocks zone as we call it now? What was he doing in you?
I think he was doing a lot of things. I think ultimately every time was an opportunity to learn more about who he was and then who I was in him. And I just found that he would like ask me to do something, and I had the opportunity to step out on faith and move to the yellow zone or stay in the green zone. And whenever I would choose the Goldilocks zone, the Lord would meet me there, show his faithfulness, and then all it would make me want to do is have him ask me something bigger, like go out, like whatever would stretch my faith even more. Because our faith is just constantly meant to be stretched to grow closer to him. And so he just starts out small, and then he'll just keep asking, and then he keeps showing up and being faithful. And it's just this perpetual desire. And so I come back from Rwanda and Zimbabwe, and I go straight into college in an American college, Kent State University in Northeast Ohio. And I had the worst reverse culture shock. I was ready to drop out of school and move to Kenya. I was ready, and I just realized that I was just in this place where I was back in this comfort. And I had the most amazing advisor who said, we don't send sophomores abroad, but you got to go abroad next year. Get out of here. And I was so grateful for that advice, because it put me, and I wasn't even at a Christian school. She wasn't a believer, but what she didn't realize she was doing was putting me back in a place where I was dependent on him again, because I'm back in foreign places, not speaking languages and whatever.
Yeah, and let me tell you something. God uses people who aren't in faith yet, who don't know him yet. Totally. Look through the whole scripture, right, Erin? Like there's so many times he used Pharaoh. He used multiple people through the scriptures. And I can go on. I'm not going to take up the time, but imagine that, and we forget that as believers, that God is working even in those that we think are unworkable.
Totally. Yep. And we don't know what seeds he's planting in those moments either. It's so cool.
Yeah. So you're there at Kent State. You get the...
Go abroad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, now I'm like, wow, my faith was nothing when I was in Rwanda and Zimbabwe. Like, it just felt like it just kept exponentially, kept watching him show up, testimony after testimony. Get back, senior year of, I graduated a year early, so it was my last year. Technically, it was my third year of college, but last year. Mm-hmm. First semester, get back, exact same situation. Back in comfort, can't handle it. So I call my parents one day and I say, I'm going to live out of my car next semester. And
you're going to live in your car?
They were like, no, you're not. And I was like, well, you got to hear me out. Because remember, my parents love the Lord. They're so excited that I'm now back into discovering my faith and stuff.
Sure.
So I give them a reason they can't fight me on. I said, yeah, I want to be more dependent on the Lord, and I can't be dependent on him when I'm in college in America. It's too comfortable. So I'm going to live out of my car so I can be more dependent on him. It was like crickets on the phone, because they knew they couldn't argue with me on that. And I wasn't even like making an argument for argument. That was truly my reason.
I'm trying to stay out of your story as much as possible. But Erin, every time you talk, you're sucking me in, because that's a gift that you have, by the way. You're sucking me into the life of your story. It's amazing to hear that. So I'm thinking from my perspective as a parent with my daughter, who's 23 right now currently and married. I couldn't imagine her going, hey, Dad, you know what? I'm not going to get a place. I'm not going to live here at home. I'm going to live in my car and be uncomfortable in this place so that I can serve the Lord.
My husband and I are currently expecting our first, and I look back now and I'm like, I can't my parents let me do what they let me do. I'm shocked.
Yeah.
But, and so not only...
What a milestone, by the way. That's a milestone, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's huge. It's a blessing. So granted, remember, I'm in Northeast Ohio, second semester, which starts in January.
Which is cold.
Freezing. And goes till May. But I had it all figured out. And I'm also in a 2005 or 6 Chevy Cobalt. So not this massive... I was fine by me. Slept in the back truck and I had a back seat, and college was the time to do it because I had the rec center to shower. I had a meal plan.
How did you stay warm? I'm from Michigan, Erin. I grew
was
up in the cold.
over prepared, actually. I had my dad's thermal sleeping bag. I had the like blankets they wrap around you after marathons, like the emergency blankets. I had hot water bottle heaters, hand warmers, foot warmers. I didn't need any of it except the sleeping bag and like warm clothes. It was great.
This is incredible.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, but again, I was just dependent.
Wow.
I mean, I had police knocking my door thinking I was homeless, offering me like food. I had full means to live in an apartment, but I was just like, no, it's too comfortable and too easy. Like it felt too safe.
Wow.
I loved it. I mean, it was like the best semester of my college career because of that, because every day I was just dependent on the Lord, asking him to keep me safe, asking him to keep me warm, asking him, just being grateful for the opportunity to have that, but also to not be in that position, because some people, that is their only option or position. Like just so many different things where, I mean, like we said earlier, we're forgetful. And so if I'm not doing that, then I'm forgetting to talk to God about it, to be reliant on him, to thank him for those things, to ask him for the little things. Like I should be asking him for help, whether I'm in a house or I'm in a car.
Yeah.
But I just forget. I think we all forget. And so that was really setting this precedence for this, like, oh, I need to keep doing this. And so that eventually moved me to the Keys. And this was really cool. Surrender my dolphin career to the Lord. And in his graciousness, so I'm in college this whole time looking to change my major about 25 different times. So I'm like, Lord, what do you want me to do? All I've known for the last 15 years is to become a dolphin trainer. And I'm studying biology. Like, I'm like, what do you want me to do? He was silent, no answer. So I, this time, then just kept pursuing dolphin career until he showed me something else. But this time, instead of his closed fist saying, this is what I'm going to do, it was this open hands being like, Lord, you're not showing me anything, so I'm going to keep moving this way, but I'm so okay if you take it. I'm so okay if you ask me to do something else. Well, in his graciousness, I never understood the Lord's grace like this until this happened. He let me go be a dolphin trainer down in the Florida Keys after I graduated graduated college, excuse me. And the most amazing thing was it was just this 4-month internship, but they were so normally interns with dolphins, you scrub buckets 40 hours a week. The last week you touch a dolphin once or twice.
Really? Okay.
This facility did specifically what I wanted to do, was dolphin-assisted therapy. They worked with veterans with PTSD, women's from abuse shelter, children with every kind of physical and emotional and mental disorder, and used dolphins to work as therapy for that.
Well, that's incredible.
Well, they were so short-staffed, I was working dolphins the first week of my internship there. I swam with dolphins more times I could count. I got to train dolphins. You got the very sacred dolphin training whistle, which is what is just the biggest deal in the dolphin world.
Okay.
Things you never get in internships.
Wow.
And I was just, fish prep started at 5 a.m. I was up at 3 a.m. because I couldn't go back to sleep. I was so excited to go to work. And it was just, I couldn't believe that I had surrendered this to the Lord and he gave it back to him. I was never expecting him to give it back to me. All of college, I was fervently looking for him to tell me what else he wanted me to do. He never did it. And so that brought me to the Keys. I at this point, I'm still in nomad life. So I thought I'm moving to the Keys and I'm moving out after this time with the dolphins.
Okay.
Well, a weekend, the Lord made it clear he wanted me to stay. I'm like, okay. And so it was just wild because this place was so short-staffed that even though I wasn't full-time there after that time, I could still go back and volunteer whenever I wanted. I was like, I'm a on-call dolphin trainer. I'm like, who gets to do that? It was like the most amazing thing.
That is amazing, yeah.
And so then I find out that it's a thing to live on boats down there. And I was like, oh, I'm all in, but I know zero about this. So the Lord provides me the most amazing living situation. Housing's the biggest issue down in the Keys, really hard to find. You got to work 4 jobs to even try and make rent down there. And the Lord had provided me this amazing opportunity where I was able to live on this RV in exchange for rent. And so, or in exchange for rent. And I just knew, I said, Lord, whenever you want me to give this up, I need you to make it clear. And so in July of 2020, the Lord made it clear. He's like, you need to surrender this living situation. I said, okay, I'm all in. So I was like, it'd be cool to live on a boat, but I don't know what that looks like. 2 weeks later, a friend calls me up and says, hey, a mutual friend of ours has a boat and getting rid of it. You should give him a call. Give him a call. I said, I don't even know what I'm supposed to ask you except you have a boat and I want a boat. He's like, great, come look at it. I go and look at this 25-foot boat that has no floor, rotted bulkheads. I mean, nothing. Mast down, boom not attached, all these things. And I'm like, this is great. And he said these magic words. So I prayed to the Lord a couple weeks earlier. I said, Lord, if I'm going to live on a boat, I need you to put people in my life that are going to show me how to live on a boat because I know nothing about it.
Okay.
My friend said these magic words. He said, I'll show you everything you need to be able to get this boat in the water and I'll help you fix it up. And I think this is the price range you can do it for. And it's exactly in my budget.
Wow.
This is awesome.
Wow.
So I move onto this boat and living on a sailboat now, anchored offshore, and I'm kayaking back and forth to land every day.
Wow.
Talk about being reliant on the Lord because you're kayaking in sunshine, but you're also kayaking in 30-knot winds when a hurricane's coming.
Whoa.
And I mean, there were just so many times.
30 knot. I think you meant when a hurricane comes,
80 knot. Yeah.
keep going,
I
right?
think the most I had ever kayaked was in 60 knots, 60 or 70, which is at least tropical storm weather. I mean, it might be Cat 1.
Well, let me stop you in the story real quick because I know it's a powerful story you get into, and folks, hang with us, okay? Ready to feel unstoppable? Hit Chill Cold Plunge in Cape Coral, now with 2 locations on Del Prado and Chiquita. Cold Plunge, recovery, and total reset all in one place. Boost your energy, crush inflammation, and get back to your best? Well, get to Chill in Cape Coral. Take the plunge today. Their phone number is 239-204-5778. That's 239-204-5778. Okay? Because this is setting up, but you've been through hurricane on that boat, right? You were like coming off there to shore during a hurricane when they were pushing through?
Yeah, so when I first got the boat, I actually was really blessed. I think 30 or 40 knots was the most I had experienced. I wasn't on a boat. My first hurricane was when Hurricane Ian came through.
Yeah, powerful.
And in the Keys, it only got to Category 1. It picked up when it went
and
up
then it went up and it came right to where we were.
Exactly.
Sitting, in the Fort Myers, Cape Coral, all that area and that coastline. All the way up. Yeah. Yeah.
And
but still 30 knot winds. So that 40. That's pretty hot. When
Ian came through, I was still on a kayak. So I had already been on the boat a year or two at that point, but was still kayaking. My dog actually at that point, I had a dog and she didn't want to go to the bathroom on the boat at that point.
Oh boy. You're telling me you had to kayak your dog?
So that was 60, 70 knots.
No way.
That was a short kayak and it was a wild ride. She looked at me and was like, Mom, what are we doing?
Did you say 60 to 7 knot winds and you took the dog on shore in a kayak?
She wasn't going to the bathroom.
So let me ask you a question. Was it going behind you so it pushed you onto shore?
Well, so we had to go both ways. So the first way, I
can't even imagine what that would be
into
like.
it. The second ride, we were cruising back. I didn't even paddle.
Wow.
Yeah, it was great.
That's incredible.
But I sunk the boat in the first 6 weeks we had it. Had to bail it out with a 5-gallon bucket. I mean, there were so many.
Wait, you sunk your sailboat.
Yeah.
It went underwater.
Yeah.
How deep was the water there?
So that was the blessing.
Okay.
Because it was only like 7 or 8 feet of water. So it was fully submerged, but it wasn't immersed to the point we had to use float bags to get it up.
Okay. So this didn't have a long, they call it a keel?
So this boat had a keel, but it was called a swing keel. So it could go as shallow as 4 feet or as deep as 6 or 7 feet.
Okay.
Probably.
Right.
And so the keel was all the way up when I was anchored here.
Okay.
Able to plug all the different through holes that brought water in and then just got a 5-gallon bucket and bailed it out.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was a month into having the boat. Boat drug free. I had FWC in my house a couple times because the boat drug free 3 times in the first 6 weeks. I mean, it was wild. But
go on.
It was that place that I knew I always longed to be.
Yeah.
Where I was so completely dependent on the Lord, fervently praying, and so this is a side story, but another way I had chose I don't even think I had chose discomfort here. It was on a different Jesus adventure. I felt like the Lord had asked me to give up different things for 40 days. So one of the things was my car. So I gave up my car for 40 days. Well, 2 days before I was about to give up my car, it just died. And I was like, oh, this is great. I don't need a car anyway. I'm about to give it up. Well, in my mind, my car was I was going to get a new car after these 40 days. Well, the Lord had other plans, and I spent 9 months without a car. So one of these times, the boat broke free and I only had a bike. I didn't have an anchor. So I'm biking with an anchor, like at night, trying to get to it was wild. And I wipe out. And I just hit this like ground, literal ground bottom of like, God, I don't want to do it. Like, it's not always like, oh yeah, it was great. Like, no, that was hard. I went to God and I was like, I'm done. Like, something has to give. Like, and I just remember calling my parents crying and just being like, I just want to come back and live with you guys. I've never thought that before. But it was one of those like, no, this is hard. Like, this is not like, and I think that is just important to note that even though the Goldilocks zone is always worth it, it doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean like living in my car was awesome. Like there weren't as many like, oh, this is really hard. And some Goldilocks moments will, I think, be maybe easier, even though they are so rewarding. But a lot of them are just hard. And I think that is good to highlight that the boat, I tell people it's the highest highs and lowest lows every single day. Like, it is so hard for one reason or another, whether it's the boat dragging or, there's just, you look at something and it breaks, like, because it's in salt water. And so there is just.
How do you relate that to your walk with Christ?
I just think that it's the exact same in a way, because it's like, back to what we said in the very beginning, that Jesus said really hard things. It's not easy to forgive those who have hurt you and to love your enemies and to, give in this radical generosity Christ calls us to give, this sacrificial generosity. And none of that's easy, but it's worth it. I think that's what we have to keep going back to is like, yeah, none of this was easy, but it was worth it. Like, that's what I kept going back to was like, I know I wouldn't want anything different. Like, I know in that moment, everything felt like it would have been fixed if I just quit everything and moved back in with my parents. And I knew that was just my like emotions being like, this is so hard. But it's like, I ultimately knew that wasn't what I wanted. Just like when Christ asks us to do those hard things.
Yeah.
It's not that it's like, oh, I just want to walk away from Christ then. It's like, no, like it's hard, but we still want it. Like, we still want, I don't exactly know how I'm trying to say it, but just like,
it's a knowing is the way you're just saying. It's like, that he has called you into this. You said yes because you heard. This has been the common theme I'm finding out through our podcast. People heard the voice of God calling them in, and they said yes, and they agreed, and they went with it because he's a loving father. And I think that's what I'm hearing you trying to pull out of that place is that he loves you tremendously. And that's why you're willing to go, I'm in.
I think that's the most perfect point you could have said, because I think that's where it all starts. Because if you don't have the foundation of knowing your identity in Christ and knowing how loved you are, then none of this is possible. And this, I mean walking in that Goldilocks zone. Like, why? And even following his commandments. Like, we're only able to forgive with this radical forgiveness because we first know how forgiven we are. Or we're able to give with this radical generosity because we first have understood this radical generosity Jesus gave to us. And so I think what you just said about that loving is like so true. Like, if we don't grasp the Father's love for us and that depth of our identity in him, then it's like, none of the rest of this is like even able to be comprehended. So that was a really good thought. Yeah.
It came from your story. It's your story. We just pulled it up. Yeah. God's just working through it. Tell me more about now that got the sailboat the water's out of it. I'm just having this picture of you with this little, Erin, I see you with this little tin cup just trying to get this water out of this big, huge boat because you got so much energy. I wish, that's what I pick up from the Lord on you is this is so much life. It's just, he's equipped you with so much life in what he's pulling you into because your mission and what you're into today and the way you got there and what you named this boat is all him. Mm-hmm. I mean, when I heard your story before, I was like, wow, that's our God. That's how he works. So let's jump into that in the last segment here and tell us about that a little bit more. You got the boat, you got the little tin cup, you've been back and forth. He's training you through all these experiences because there's something more coming out of it.
Totally. So I'm going to give kind of a couple different kind of connector pieces so we can just kind of fast forward.
Go right ahead.
So I get the boat. The Lord asks me, or I asked the Lord, I said, you gifted me this boat. What do you want to do with it? He was kind of quiet for a minute. But there was these kind of two parallel stories happening at the same time.
Okay.
The boat story is happening, but the Lord also was like, I want you to start camps overseas. I'd been studying Swahili, so East Africa made sense. Going to cut a 3-hour testimony short. 6 months later, I find myself in Kenya, get connected with this group.
Okay, Erin, you can't just throw things out like this. You're like, and I was studying Swahili. Like, I had no idea you're studying Swahili. What does Swahili sound like? Can you speak Swahili?
Yeah.
You're like, hey, by the way, I was just, doing Swahili. And next thing you'll be like, now I was speaking Hebrew and now I was speaking Greek. I'm like, what is going on here?
No, I'm trying to get us.
You're very educated.
I'm trying to get us fast forward.
No, it's good though. So tell me about the Swahili. No, this is why we have this. Yeah.
So that's a very quick side story.
Can you speak Swahili?
Kidogo too.
Oh, I don't even know what you just said, but it sounded like Swahili to me.
Just a little. But you can speak Swahili too. That's the coolest thing. Because you've seen Lion King, right?
Yes.
So what's the little lion's name?
Simba.
Yeah, so that means lion in Kiswahili. And then what's the song that Timon and Pumbaa are known for?
Hakuna Matata.
Which literally means no worries in Swahili.
Okay, I'm there.
Hakuna means there are no. And then Matata is a little, it should be Matazo, but they Disneyized it.
That's okay.
And so it's Hakuna Matata, but it literally means no worries. Rafiki's the monkey means friend. He's the friend in there. The whole opening song Swahili. So you know more Swahili than you thought you did.
Okay, well, I guess we do now.
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
So very competitive sibling. Older sibling spoke a bunch of languages. I spoke Latin. I woke up one day and said, I'm going to learn Swahili. And I started learning it my senior year of high school, took it in college, used it in Rwanda, and then didn't use it much after that. But I know that the Lord doesn't let anything go to waste. So I was like, okay, if he's asking me to go to camps overseas, I know the Swahili East Africa makes sense.
And this connects in.
Totally does.
Yeah.
So I go and meet these women, started a shelter for girls, want to do summer camps. So I start going to Kenya to do these summer camps. Okay, so then I'm on a mission trip on a sailboat. We're sailing to the Bahamas to do relief. And that's when the Lord shows me the second vision of, I want you to also do camps on the boat. So it's like camps in Kenya, camps on the boat. So now I'm like, okay, well, these things are already happening in Kenya. I'm on a 25-foot sailboat. Lord, I'll use whatever you gave me, but we were doing these overnights and we could pretty much do an overnight with like 4 girls, and that was our capacity on this boat. So I was like, whatever you want to do, Lord, I'm all in. So
what are you doing on these overnights? What's that look like?
Yeah, so we were all about, so my background's biology, dolphins. So I'm just all about connecting God's creation to who God is and letting people grow in their relationship with Christ because of that.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And
yeah, that's good.
Like just love making devotions out of the creatures of the sea, and just there's just so many cool, like mangroves, the trees that are all around here. You see the full gospel message in this one tree, which is amazing. Wow. There's this yellow leaf. It's a sacrificial leaf. They put all their salt in that one leaf. The leaf dies. The rest of the tree grows on. And there's just so much there you can just run with. And so at this point, these camps are happening. So I'm like, Lord, do we do a nonprofit? What do we do? So cool testimony of how Ends of the Earth showed up I was working as a mate on a snorkel boat. They show up with a shirt that says pray, serve, repeat, and an anchor on it. I thought it was a sailing ministry. So I'm like, tell me all about this. They're trying to explain what ends is. It's kind of making sense, kind of not. Show up to their worship night. They're like, we're running a ride in Alaska. I'm like, great. I wanted a bike in Alaska. I was just asking the Lord about it. So I sign up for the Alaska ride, meet Justin Hannikin, who's like the coolest dude in the world. And he's in my bike leader group. He invites me to join Ends of the Earth as instead of cycling, as camping. So he's like, come and bring your camps under what we're already doing here. I was like, that is the answer to prayer and the blessing. So then through ends, I meet this amazing couple named Brian and Brenda Ness, who are like, if you could think of like the most servant-hearted people you know, Brian and Brenda would like blow them out of proportion. Like they just exist to serve and love others. And like always do the like dirty grunt work with the biggest smile on their face. They're just a joy. Well, I become like best friends by them. They tell everyone I'm their biological daughter because they have no biological kids together.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I'm equally half Brian and half Brenda. And so they're like, look, you're our daughter. And so long story short, I'm like, each of these stories could be a 3-hour testimony in and of itself. I'm just trying to like fast forward us to get.
And you know, Erin, we can always come back in another podcast and talk about some of these stories.
Perfect.
It's perfect. Yeah, that is absolutely, you said it.
So Brian and Brenda are hearing this vision of these camps and everything. And they come up to me and they're like, so we're thinking about, we're selling our house. We're thinking about buying you a boat that you can use for ministry. What do you think about that? I was like,
wow.
I mean, my jaw dropped. And honestly, I was more stoked to just be knowing that they're stuck with me indefinitely than anything else. Like I was just like, we get to do ministry together. This is awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And so again,
That's really
how
good.
the Lord works is a month later we have a boat, which is wild. Like he just can move like his time. He's rarely early, but never late. And this was one of the times he felt
a boat
early.
that doesn't sink.
A boat that doesn't say, I mean, this is like double the size, as fancy as can be. Like you turn the key and you're ready to go to the Bahamas. Like, and I mean, we put a ton of work into it, but every boat is a project. And so this boat was just a blessing. And it's so funny because we all just think of it as God's boat. They don't think of it as their boat. I don't think of it as my boat. It's like, if someone asks me I'm the owner, I'm like, nope. It's like, it's God's boat. And it was just really cool because so now I'm finally ready to answer your question. That was all of
it's good.
Jumping part. So we get this boat and it was cool. I was actually talking with Justin at one point and I was explaining this trip that I had about a few months before this boat came into the picture. And I was telling him, I was like, it just really felt like this trip was like a place of refuge. And without even this boat even coming into the picture yet, he was like, I think that's the name of your next boat. And then what was really cool was we ended up naming it Refuge out of Psalm 46:1. The Lord is my refuge and fortress and ever-present help in times of trouble. And what Justin didn't even realize when he was saying that is the boat's 46 feet long, coming from Psalm 46. And you're like, that's just how the Lord works.
Come on, that's awesome.
And so now we're in a place I have the spiritual covering being under Ends now and under New International as a whole. They're this amazing sending organization that just values and cares for its people so well.
That's great.
And now there's this boat the Lord provided and we're ready to do ministry with, like all in on. And now we don't even have to do overnights. We can do week-long camp programs because we have the vessel for it. And so still going to Kenya, like all of these things, it's just so cool.
What a good word you used there. Vessel.
Yeah.
This is a good long pause here. You're thinking about it.
I mean, you're just spot on with it.
All along the way, you were being worked on, upgraded in you to be the vessel in charge of the vessel to do the work. That's pretty amazing, Erin.
That was very well said. I might re-quote you on that if I have your permission.
You absolutely do. You could do that.
That's so
This is all Lord. Yeah, it's all
like
from him.
I think I'd always use the word equipping, but that's exactly, it was like being a vessel of like just being prepared. And what I've come to learn now is I thought when Refuge came into the picture where it was like, okay, the equipping's done. And that was so naive and immature of me to just recognize that you're never done being equipping or being filled as a vessel, because he's just preparing you for the next place to pour out. And so,
or pull into port.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so it's the Lord's boat. And so we go to him and say, what do you want to do with it? And whatever he tells us to do, we go and do.
That's pretty amazing. So on this boat, this Refuge boat, which I love the name, by the way, and I love Psalm 46:1, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And on there, you're equipping teenagers. What kind of things are you doing? I heard you before you were doing, the sea. Do you still do that on the new boat, or is there a new program? Is there something that God has changed or stirred in that differently? Or are you still on the same task of, hey, let's look at the ocean, let's look at nature, let's look at creation, and then you put it around that? What type of people is God bringing into your path that you have the ability to speak into?
Yeah, so the original vision was to have at-risk and troubled youth on the boat, particularly because that's who we were working with in Kenya. So I really wanted to mirror and partner those, ultimately to then have this pen pal program the girls could write back and forth to each other. Well, we got the boat in September with the plans to start these camps the following summer, and everything fell into place, and then everything crumbled. And it was I just went to the Lord and said exactly what I just told you. I said, Lord, it's your boat. We can do whatever you want with it. I just need to know what you want to do with it. And within 24 hours, we were in the Boy Scout program. And so it had so many hidden blessings we weren't prepared for. And so instead of doing 6 weeks with troubled youth, we ended up doing 10 or 11 weeks that first summer. Last year, we did 13 with the Boy Scouts. And what's really cool is, so they come already as a group and knowing each other and stuff. But there is a badge they can earn called the Duty to God badge. And in some ways, I don't love it because it's very much check the box. But in other ways, I love it because it's a great kind of conversation starter to gauge the spiritual temperature of who's on board that week.
Yeah.
And are they even interested in it? Are they doing devotions, but they're just doing them because their adults told them to? And I had acquired from my pastor a whole box of these Seafarer Bibles. Oh. And it was basically just a Bible, but it had an anchor and a knot on it. So it was nautical. Cool. Yeah. So I was like, whoever comes on the boat is getting a Bible. Well, that means that I have had just about every demographic, every religion. I've had atheists on board, just all of these people. And it was like a non-negotiable, not non-negotiable for them, but in my mind, I could never let whatever I found out about them in the week deter me from being hesitant to give them a Bible. Every single person wrote them a shout out in the cover of the book, gave it to them, spoke life into them, and then gave them, telling them this is the compass in my life. And teenage years is the most, you're looking for this pivotal time in their life wherever they're all trying to figure out what their compass is. Yeah. And so I get to say, this is the compass in my life. You are at this stage in your life where you get to figure out what your compass is. And I really hope that you spend time digging into this. And so we still do those devotions with the sea creatures, but it just kind of depends on the week. Every week's different. So sometimes we do those, sometimes we do what the crew's brought on board. But I'd say the one thing that never changes is they're all getting a Bible at the end of the week. And honestly, it's really challenging for me because when I get a difficult crew on board, I already know before they come on board that they're getting a Bible. And so it really convicts me because I'm like, if I'm a jerk here during the week, and then I know I'm giving them a Bible, how hypocritical am I going to come off? Or am I going to be a light this week and they're going to be like, yeah, I want what Captain Erin had and I'm going to run after this too and let it be my compass. And so I've been very convicted many times with some challenging humans, but just choosing of no, this is what we're called to do, is be the light, salt and light.
Erin, amazing story from where you came from, being in a place of saying, I want discomfort. I want to be challenged. I want to live, God, in the place you want me to be and be a vessel unto honor, not dishonor. Thank you for being on the Three Doves podcast, Erin. You are an inspiration. and a true lighthouse for those seeking refuge in Christ.
Can I say just one quick final thing to that?
Go ahead.
Is that's such a kind word with saying the inspiration. But my biggest fear is I get so many people who come up to me and say, oh, I could never have the faith you have. And I think that's, if I could leave Three Doves podcast with one like encouragement to others, is that every person can live in that Goldilocks zone, can be dependent and reliant on the Lord. And it doesn't take this special faith. It doesn't take this anything. It just takes this hunger of like, am I going to choose to be all in and running in this? And so I would love to leave your listeners with that last piece of like, what prayer can you offer to the Lord of like, Lord, I'm all in and here my hands are open. Like, I just want to be more dependent on you. And so thanks so much for having me, Jason. It was such a blessing to just get to come and share just bits and pieces of how God's worked.
Well said. Well said. Thank you again.
Yeah, thanks, Jason.
You know, folks, Erin's story is such a reminder that God often meets us outside of comfort, not to harm us, but to grow us, direct us, even redirect us, and draw us closer to Him. What looked like uncertainty became the very place where faith got real, purpose became clear, and trust happened to deepen. Thanks for joining us on the Three Doves podcast. And if this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who needs to hear and remember God is still writing stories worth telling.